The door slid shut with a soft hiss. Ethan turned just in time to see the metal seal glow red. Locked. He rushed forward and pressed his palm against the smooth surface. Hey, wait. The door just closed. No response. The room was quiet, too quiet. The air felt warmer than before, thick with a faint alien scent he could never describe. Sweet, sharp, and wrong. Ethan forced himself to breathe slowly. Panic would not help. Panic never helped humans survive among the stars. He turned around. She was standing behind him. Lyra, his alien friend's sister. She was taller than him by a head, her silver-blue skin catching the low light of the room. Thin glowing lines ran down her arms and neck, pulsing softly like slow heartbeats. Her eyes, large, dark, and unreadable, were locked on him. You locked the door, Ethan said. He tried to keep his voice calm. Can you open it? Lyra tilted her head slightly, studying him like a puzzle. No. The word was soft. Certain. Ethan swallowed. Why not? She stepped closer. One step, then another. Her movements were smooth, controlled, almost careful. She stopped just a meter away. Because, she said quietly, you are safer here. That made his chest tighten. Safer from what? Her lips curved into something that was not quite a smile. From leaving. Ethan had lived on the alien station Kepri, 9 for almost a year. He had learned that when aliens spoke like that, it meant trouble. He glanced around the room. It was clearly hers. The walls curved inward, glowing faintly with alien symbols. Strange objects floated slowly in the air, held up by soft gravity fields. The only exit was the sealed door behind him. Lyra, he said carefully, your brother is waiting for me. Yes, she replied. I know. That was worse. She moved again, circling him slowly. Not threatening. Not rushed. Like a hunter that already knew the prey could not escape. You humans, she said, do not understand what you are. Ethan let out a nervous laugh. Trust me, we barely understand ourselves. She stopped in front of him again. Her eyes met his, and for a moment, he felt like she was looking through him, not at him. You are rare, she continued. You adapt. You endure. You survive where others break. That's just being human, Ethan said. It's nothing special. Lyra's glowing markings brightened. It is everything. She leaned in slightly. Her voice dropped to a whisper, low and steady. You belong to me now. The words sent a cold shock through his body. Ethan took a step back, his shoulder touching the locked door. I don't belong to anyone. She did not react with anger. Instead, she seemed curious. That is what makes this interesting, she said. Earlier that day, Ethan had thought it would be a normal visit. That was his first mistake. Kepri, 9 was one of the largest mixed-species stations in known space. Humans were still new here. Still watched. Still judged. Ethan worked as a systems translator. He helped different species understand human logic, human machines, and sometimes human stubbornness. Lyra's brother, Kale, was one of the few aliens Ethan trusted. Kale was calm, honest, and fascinated by human history. He had invited Ethan to their family sector to review an old human data file Kale had found. Nothing strange about that. Except Lyra. From the moment Ethan arrived, he felt her eyes on him. Not hostile. Not friendly. Just focused. Kale had left the room to retrieve a device. That was when Lyra spoke. Humans do not fear confinement, she had said. Ethan shrugged. We don't like it, but we handle it. Her eyes had glowed brighter at that. Minutes later, Kale was called away by station security. And now Ethan was locked in her room. Back in the present, Ethan forced himself to think. Humans had survived worse than this. Caves, prisons, dying worlds, alien wars. He straightened his back. You can't keep me here, he said. The station has rules. Lyra nodded slowly. Yes, it does. She raised her hand, and the symbols on the walls shifted. But rules, she added, do not stop what is already in motion. The room hummed softly. Ethan felt a strange pressure, not on his body, but on his mind. Like the air itself was watching him. What do you want from me? He asked. Lyra looked at him for a long moment before answering. I want to understand, she said. Why humans always survive. Her gaze sharpened. And whether you can survive me. The lights dimmed. The door remained locked. And Ethan realized this was not a misunderstanding. This was a test. The room stayed dim. Ethan stood still, his back near the sealed door, his mind racing. He did not shout. He did not pound on the wall. Humans learned long ago that fear wasted energy. Lyra watched him closely. Most beings panicked when trapped. Their hearts raced. Their breathing broke. Their thoughts fell apart. Ethan only closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them again, his breathing was steady. "That pressure you're using," he said calmly. "It's not working the way you think." Lyra's eyes narrowed. "Explain." "It's meant to scare me," Ethan said. "To make me feel small. But humans lived with fear long before we left our planet." He tapped his chest lightly. "We grew up with it." The glowing lines on Lyra's arms flickered. This was not the reaction she expected. "Your kind should be overwhelmed," she said. "The field reads your stress levels." "Oh, I'm stressed," Ethan replied. "I'm just functional." That word seemed to interest her. "Functional," she repeated. She lifted her hand, and the pressure increased. Ethan felt it then. Not pain, but weight, like invisible hands pressing down on his thoughts. His vision blurred for a second. He clenched his jaw. Humans had endured gravity stronger than their bones. Cold that froze blood. Silence that broke minds. This was uncomfortable. Not impossible. Ethan forced his thoughts into order. He focused on small things. The hum of the walls. The slow pulse of light. The rhythm of his own breath. The pressure eased. Lyra stepped back slightly, surprise clear on her face. "You adjusted," she said. "Yeah," Ethan answered. "We do that." Lyra moved to one of the floating objects and waved her hand. The pressure field shut down completely. "You are different from the others," she said. Ethan relaxed his shoulders, but stayed alert. "You keep saying that, but you still haven't told me why I'm locked in here." She turned to face him again. "Because my people are afraid." "Of humans?" Ethan asked. "Yes." That caught him off guard. "We're not exactly the scariest species out here," he said. "We don't have claws. No natural weapons. We're smaller than half the beings on this station." Lyra's eyes fixed on his. "That is why." She walked closer again, but slower this time. Less like a hunter, more like a scientist. "You arrived in the stars late," she continued. "You had no great empires. No ancient technology. You should have been consumed." She stopped an arm's length away. "But you were not." Ethan said nothing. "You survive losses that would end others," she said. "Your worlds burn, and you rebuild. Your bodies break, and you stand again." Her voice lowered. "Your mind does not know when to surrender." Ethan gave a small smile. "We call that being stubborn." Lyra studied his face. "I call it dangerous." Elsewhere on Kepri 9, Kale was arguing with station security. "My sister would not detain a human without cause," he said. The officer folded his arms. "Your sister sealed a private chamber. The human has not responded to calls." Kale's chest tightened. Lyra was brilliant and unpredictable. "She promised she would observe only," Kale said quietly. The officer's eyes hardened. "Observation does not include imprisonment." Kale turned away, already moving. "Then I will retrieve him myself." Back in the room, Lyra activated a panel in the air. Images appeared: human history, wars, disasters, collapsing cities, survivors crawling from ruins. Ethan watched silently. "You see this as proof of strength," he said. "I see proof of inevitability," Lyra replied. "A species that cannot stop fighting, cannot stop adapting." She looked at him sharply. "What happens when such a species decides it has had enough?" Ethan met her gaze. "Then it changes the rules." That answer made her freeze. "Explain," she demanded. "When humans are pushed too far," he said slowly, "we don't break." He paused. "We push back." The room was quiet again. Lyra's markings dimmed, then brightened in a new pattern. "You are not afraid of me," she said. "I am," Ethan replied honestly. "But fear doesn't control me." She seemed to consider that deeply. Without warning, the floor beneath Ethan shifted. Gravity reversed. He was lifted off his feet, floating helplessly in the air. His stomach lurched, but he forced his body to relax. Panic would make it worse. Lyra watched carefully. "Most lose control here," she said. Ethan spread his arms slightly, adjusting his balance. "Yeah," he said through clenched teeth. "We train astronauts for this." Slowly, painfully, he oriented himself. Lyra's eyes widened. "You learn to suffer before it happens," she whispered. "Experience is a great teacher," Ethan said. She lowered the gravity. Ethan dropped to the floor, landing on one knee. He stayed there for a second, breathing hard. When he stood, Lyra was no longer smiling. She was unsettled. "You are proving my fear correct," she said. "Humans should not exist this way." Ethan looked her straight in the eyes. "We don't exist to make you comfortable. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Lyra said something unexpected. This was only the first test. Ethan's blood ran cold. Test. She nodded. If you fail the next one. The door behind him glowed brighter. You will not leave this room. Far across the station, Cale reached the sealed corridor outside his sister's chamber. And inside, Ethan realized that surviving Lyra was no longer enough. He had to change her mind. The room changed. The walls pulled back slightly, revealing deeper layers of glowing symbols. The soft light turned sharp and cold. Ethan felt it before he understood it. This test was not about fear anymore. It was about choice. Lyra stood near the center of the room, her posture straight, her expression calm but focused. You passed the first trials, she said. You resisted pressure. You adapted to instability. She raised one finger. Now comes the final measure. Ethan did not like the word final. What happens if I fail? He asked. Lyra answered without emotion. You will be contained, studied, preserved. Ethan's jaw tightened. That's not an answer. For my people, she said, it is mercy. That was enough. Ethan stepped forward. Listen to me, he said, his voice low but firm. Humans are not tools. We are not puzzles. And we are not something you lock in a room. Lyra's eyes flickered. And yet here you stand. Because I chose not to fight, Ethan replied. Don't confuse patience with weakness. The symbols around them reacted to his voice. Not loudly, not violently, but they reacted. Lyra noticed. The floor split open. A circular gap formed beneath Ethan's feet, revealing a dark shaft that dropped far below. Heat rose from it, dry and sharp. Step forward, Lyra said. Ethan looked down. The shaft led into darkness, broken only by thin platforms moving slowly up and down, never stopping. What is this? He asked. A path, she replied. Only one leads out. Ethan laughed softly. Of course it does. She tilted her head. You find this amusing? No, he said. I find it familiar. He took a slow breath. Humans have been walking off cliffs since the beginning of our history. Without waiting, Ethan stepped forward. The floor vanished beneath him. He fell. The heat rushed past him. His stomach flipped as instinct screamed at him to panic. He didn't. Instead, Ethan counted. 1, 2. He twisted his body midair, reaching out. His fingers caught the edge of a passing platform. Pain shot through his arm, but he held on, muscles screaming. He pulled himself up and lay flat, breathing hard. Above him, Lyra watched in silence. Most beings froze at the edge. Some screamed. Some begged. Ethan jumped. Not because he trusted the path, but because humans trusted themselves. The platforms shifted unpredictably. Some dropped suddenly. Others tilted without warning. The heat below grew stronger. Ethan moved carefully, testing each step. He fell once. The drop bruised his side and knocked the breath from his lungs, but he rolled and stood again. He fell a second time. His knee burned with pain. He stood again. Lyra's hands tightened at her sides. Why do you continue? She asked, her voice echoing down the shaft. Ethan looked up at her. Because stopping is worse. That answer shook her. Outside the chamber, Cale reached the sealed door. Lyra, he said urgently through the calm, end this. Now. She must learn, Lyra replied. Cale's voice hardened. You are crossing a line. So did they, she said. When they came to the stars. Cale fell silent. Inside the shaft, the final platform rose slowly. Ethan climbed onto it, his body shaking, sweat soaking his clothes. Every muscle hurt. His vision blurred at the edges. The platform reached the top. The floor sealed beneath his feet. The room returned to normal. Ethan dropped to one knee, breathing hard. For several seconds, no one spoke. Then Lyra approached him slowly. You should be broken, she said quietly. Ethan looked up at her, eyes tired but clear. That's where you're wrong. He stood. This is the line humans do not cross, he said. We don't give up who we are. Not for safety. Not for fear. The symbols on the walls dimmed. Lyra took a step back. You faced death without certainty, she said. Without promise. Ethan nodded. That's called being human. Lyra turned away, her shoulders tense. For the first time, she said, I am unsure. That's okay, Ethan replied. It means you're learning. She faced him again. You were never meant to leave, she admitted. The door behind Ethan unlocked with a soft chime. Cale rushed in. Ethan, he called. Ethan didn't move. He kept his eyes on Lyra. What happens now? He asked. Lyra's voice was low. Now, she said, My people will ask why I failed to contain you. And what will you tell them? Ethan asked. She met his gaze. The truth, she said. That humans cannot be owned. The room fell silent. And somewhere deep in the station, alarms began to sound. The alarms did not scream. They pulsed. Low. Steady. Heavy. Ethan felt the vibration in his chest before he fully heard it. The sound carried through the metal walls of Kepri 9, warning every species on the station that something had shifted. Kale stopped just inside the room, his eyes moving between Ethan and his sister. What did you do? He asked quietly. Lyra did not answer at first. Her glowing markings had dimmed to a faint silver, no longer sharp or bright. She looked smaller somehow, like the certainty had been pulled out of her. I tested a truth, she said at last. And the truth resisted. Kale's expression tightened. You endangered a diplomatic guest. I revealed a weakness, she replied. Yours, Kale snapped. Ethan placed a hand on Kale's arm. Easy. This isn't over yet. As if to prove him right, the lights in the corridor outside flickered. Station-wide comms activated. Attention all sectors. Security Council session in progress. Human presence classified as a potential instability. The words echoed. Kale's eyes widened. They're moving fast. Lyra closed her eyes briefly. Too fast. The council chamber filled with layered voices. Tall beings. Wide beings. Shapes that barely resembled life as humans understood it. Screens glowed with data feeds, biological readings, and recorded footage. Footage of Ethan walking into the shaft. Footage of him falling. Footage of him standing back up. The council did not like what it saw. This human endured exposure thresholds beyond expectation, one voice said. Adaptation curve unacceptable, another replied. A species that normalizes suffering cannot be safely integrated, said a third. The final voice was colder than the rest. Containment protocols must be reviewed. Ethan stood in the corridor, surrounded by guards who did not point weapons but did not relax either. You should leave the station, Kale said quietly. Now. Can I? Ethan asked. Kale hesitated. That's not comforting, Ethan said. Lyra stepped forward. They are afraid, she said. Fear makes them act without thought. Yeah, Ethan replied. We're familiar with that too. He looked around at the guards. You going to arrest me? He asked. None answered. Because none had orders. The station lights shifted to warning yellow. Bulkheads sealed in distant sectors. Ships undocked without waiting for clearance. Fear spread faster than truth. A tall, insect-like being approached, its voice buzzing through a translator. You have demonstrated unacceptable resilience, it said to Ethan. You must submit to observation. Ethan straightened. No. The word hit harder than shouting ever could. The being tilted its head. Refusal is non-compliance. Ethan nodded. That's correct. You placed the station at risk, it warned. Ethan's voice stayed calm. I didn't lock myself in a room. Silence followed. Lyra watched him closely. This was different from the tests. This was public. Kale leaned close to Ethan. If you push now, they will force it. Ethan nodded. I know. He looked around at the guards again. I don't want to fight, he said. But I won't be caged. That was the moment everything shifted. A young guard stepped back. Then another. They did not lower their weapons. They simply created space. They had seen the footage. They had seen what humans endured. In the council chamber, a new message arrived. Human fleet arrival detected. The chamber erupted. That is impossible, one counselor said. They had no military presence nearby. Another voice answered, sharp and angry. They adapted. Ethan's wrist device vibrated. A human voice came through, steady and clear. Ethan Cole. This is Captain Reyes of the Terran Defense Fleet. Ethan exhaled slowly. Good timing, he said. We received a distress anomaly, the voice continued, and a very interesting data leak. Ethan glanced at Lyra. She did not look away. Are you being detained? Captain Reyes asked. Ethan answered honestly. They're thinking about it. The response was immediate. Then they should think faster. Outside the station, human ships dropped out of hyperspace. They were not large. They were not beautiful. They were functional. Built for survival, not display. The kind of ships that had been repaired too many times to count. The kind that kept flying anyway. Inside, the council panicked. This proves it, one voice said. They respond to pressure with force. Another replied, quieter. Or protection. Lyra finally spoke. This is my fault, she said. Ethan shook his head. No. You just asked the wrong question. And what was that? She asked. Whether humans can be controlled, he replied. She looked at the station screens, at the incoming ships. And the answer? Ethan met her gaze. We don't need to be. The alarms pulsed again. This time, the station was not warning about danger. It was reacting to humanity. The human ships did not open fire. They did not power weapons. They held position. That alone unsettled the station more than any attack could have. In the command center of HFY 9, council members argued in sharp, overlapping voices. Threat displays showed human vessels in stable formation, engines warm but controlled. They are waiting, one counselor hissed. Predators wait. Another voice replied, uneasy. Or protectors. Ethan stood near the main viewport now, flanked by Kale and Lyra. Beyond the transparent alloy, the human fleet floated in silent order. They could have forced entry, Kale said. Your kind has the numbers. Ethan shook his head. That's not what this is. Lyra studied the ships closely. Then explain. Ethan folded his arms. His body still ached, but his mind was clear. When humans feel threatened, he said, we have two instincts. Kale listened carefully. One is to fight, Ethan continued. The other is to protect. He pointed toward the fleet. This, he said, is the second one. A council delegation arrived in the corridor, guarded but tense. They stopped several steps away from Ethan, as if an invisible line existed between them. A tall counselor spoke. Human Ethan Cole. You are the source of instability. Ethan nodded. That's fair. The counselor paused. You accept this? I accept that fear spreads fast, Ethan replied. Especially when people don't understand each other. The counselor's eyes narrowed. Your fleet violates neutrality. Ethan shrugged. You locked me in a room. Silence followed. Lyra stepped forward. This began with me, she said. I tested a human without consent. The council reacted instantly. You endangered interspecies peace, one voice snapped. Lyra did not look away. Yes. Ethan glanced at her, surprised. My conclusions were flawed, she continued. Humans do not seek dominance. The counselor scoffed. Your fleet says otherwise. Ethan spoke before Lyra could answer. No, he said. Our fleet says this. If you hurt one of us, you deal with all of us. The words echoed through the chamber. Kale felt a chill. A new message arrived from the human fleet. Captain Reyes appeared on the screen, her face calm, her posture relaxed. Council of HFY 9, she said. We are not here to threaten. Several counselors exchanged uneasy glances. We are here to retrieve our citizen, Reyes continued, and to ask a question. The counselor leaned forward. What question? Reyes's eyes hardened just slightly. Why did your station decide a human was something to be owned? The chamber fell silent. Ethan felt it then. Not fear. Not anger. Pride. Humanity had crossed oceans, deserts, and space itself, not to rule, but to stand together. The council spoke again, weaker now. The human is resilient beyond safe limits. Reyes nodded. So are we. Lyra looked at Ethan. You could leave, she said quietly. They would allow it now. Ethan met her gaze. That's not enough. Her eyes widened. You locked me in that room because you were afraid of what humans become under pressure, he said. This is me under pressure. He turned to the council. I'm not asking for special treatment, Ethan said. I'm asking for a rule. The council waited. No species is property, he said. No exceptions. The words struck harder than any weapon. The council argued again, but their voices lacked confidence now. The fleet still waited. Silent. Watching. At last, the lead counselor spoke. The human Ethan Cole is free to depart. Ethan nodded once. Good. And, he asked. The counselor hesitated. And, interspecies containment policies will be reviewed. Captain Reyes smiled slightly. That's a start. As the meeting ended, Kale let out a breath he had been holding. You didn't have to stay, he said to Ethan. You could have left. Ethan looked out at the fleet again. Someone had to draw the line, he said. Lyra stepped closer. You frightened them more by refusing to fight, she said. Ethan smiled faintly. Yeah, that happens. Outside, the human fleet began to withdraw. Not in retreat. In trust. The council watched them go, unsettled by a species that could bring power and choose restraint. Lyra turned to Ethan. I said you belonged to me, she said softly. Ethan met her eyes. No, he replied. I belong to my people. She nodded slowly. And that, she said, is why the galaxy should be afraid. Ethan shook his head. Not afraid, he corrected. Careful. The human ships were gone. Their engines left no scars in space, no warnings, no threats. Just absence. That absence felt heavier than their arrival. Khepri, 9 slowly returned to normal. Alarms shut down. Bulkheads reopened. Traders resumed their routes. But something had changed, and everyone on the station felt it. Ethan felt it most of all. He stood alone in a quiet observation corridor, staring out at the stars. His body still ached from the tests. His mind replayed every moment in Lyra's chamber. Humans survived, but survival always left marks. Behind him, soft footsteps approached. Lyra stopped a short distance away. They removed me from my position, she said. Ethan did not turn. I figured they would. I am no longer permitted to study humans, she continued, or lead research of any kind. Ethan faced her now. You okay with that? She considered the question carefully. No, she said, but I accept it. That surprised him. Why? He asked. Because consequences matter, she replied. Your species understands this. Ethan nodded. Eventually, Kale joined them, his expression tired but relieved. The council has issued a station-wide notice, he said. Humans are now classified as a sovereign equal species. No observation without consent. Ethan let out a slow breath. Good, he said. Kale hesitated. There is more. Ethan raised an eyebrow. They added a clause, Kale said. Any attempt to confine, claim, or control a human will be considered an act of aggression. Lyra's eyes dimmed slightly. You changed law with presence alone, she said. Ethan shrugged. We've been doing that since fire. News traveled fast. Other stations began reviewing their policies. Old treaties were reopened. Quiet experiments were stopped before they began. The galaxy was adjusting. Not to human power, to human limits. Later, Ethan prepared to leave Khepri 9. Captain Reyes met him at the docking bay, her uniform marked by long service and repaired seams. You caused a mess, she said lightly. Ethan smiled. That's kind of our thing. She studied him more seriously. You held the line without violence. Didn't feel peaceful, he replied. It was, Reyes said. And it scared them more than guns ever could. She extended a hand. Good work, Ethan. He shook it. As Ethan boarded the shuttle, he paused and looked back. Lyra stood at the edge of the bay. I was wrong, she said. That happens, Ethan replied. No, she said. I believed humans endured because they had no choice. She met his eyes. Now I understand. You endure because you choose to. Ethan nodded. Every time. The shuttle doors closed. As it pulled away, Lyra felt something unfamiliar. Not fear. Not fascination. Respect. Far beyond Khepri 9, human worlds listened to the report. Not with cheers. With quiet agreement. Another line had been drawn. Another promise kept. Humans would not be owned. Humans would not be caged. Humans would not be studied without consent. And somewhere in the deep black of space, other species took notice. They had learned something important. Humanity was not dangerous because it fought. Humanity was dangerous because it remembered. Years passed. Not many by human standards, but enough for stories to grow roots. Across the galaxy, the incident at Khepri 9 became a case study. Not a battle. Not a war. A moment. A choice. It was recorded under a simple title in council archives. The human refusal. Trade routes shifted. Stations updated their laws. Observation chambers were redesigned or dismantled. Consent protocols became strict. Some species protested. Others quietly complied. No one wanted to be the next lesson. Humans did not demand this. They simply continued to exist, as they always had. Ethan Cole returned to human space. He did not become famous. He did not give speeches. He went back to translating systems, explaining human logic to beings who now listened much more carefully. Sometimes they asked him the same question. Why did you not fight? Ethan always gave the same answer. Because I didn't have to. Lyra's name faded from public records. Officially, she was reassigned to planetary analysis. Quiet work. Distant worlds. Unofficially, her research changed direction. She began studying restraint. Not as weakness. As strength. She never locked another door. Kale rose within the station ranks. He became known as a mediator. Someone who understood fear on both sides of a conflict. When negotiations stalled, he often said one thing. Remember the human. That was enough. On distant worlds, young species studied human history. Not the wars, the recoveries, the way humans lost everything and still built again. The way they stood together without being asked. The way one human said no, and an entire fleet answered. There came a time when the Council faced a new crisis. A powerful species demanded control over a weaker one. The chamber filled with tension. Someone asked quietly, "What would the humans do?" No human was present. They did not need to be. Ethan, older now, stood beneath an open sky on a human world. Wind moved through grass. Real grass. Alive and stubborn. A child ran past him laughing. Humans were fragile. Humans were limited. And yet, they endured. Far away, Lyra looked out at an alien sunset. She whispered words she had once said with certainty. "You belong to me now." Then she shook her head. "No," she corrected herself. "They belong to themselves." The galaxy learned many things about humans. That they were not unbreakable. That they were not perfect. That they could be pushed. But above all, the galaxy learned this. Humans do not need to be feared when they fight. They need to be respected when they choose not to. And so the story spread. From station to station. From species to species. A quiet warning. A simple truth. Humanity does not belong to anyone. Humanity belongs to itself.